Shri Ganeshaya Namo Namah. Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe. Green morning, green afternoon, green evening. Every Sunday at 8 p.m., we bring a special program for you with the help of our brothers and sisters across the globe, non-resident Indians. They contribute a lot to us, particularly on Sundays. And today, once again, we have got a very special program for all of you. Wherever you are world over, it's a topic which is relevant to all of us. In the post-pandemic times, there are different challenges altogether. Now, at the same time, when the young couples are there, if both are working, they have got small kids, they are to be taken care of. At the same time, during the pandemic, lots of people we have lost world over. We pray to Almighty for the peace for those departed souls. And some elderly couple, those are here on the planet, they are to be taken care of. They got to be given different kind of assistance. At the same time, world over, there are specially abled children. They need altogether a different care. So when we look at different categories, ladies and gentlemen, this is of great importance. What exactly is the role of the caregivers? What is the demand of the caregivers world over? And how world is, showcasing its demand, the skills required, the competencies, the capabilities, the talents, the passion, the empathy, and everything what we take into consideration is very, very important. From Sector 20, Government College for the Education, the lady who is continuously participating in all the programs, I'm seeing her since morning, and she took active part, and I've got a deep gratitude for her, Sahib Preet. God bless you, child. We are so very happy that you are taking so much of interest and you are so deeply involved. Share your vision with others also. Share this video also with others. Share this particular program also with many others. Let the world get a benefit of Dr. Priya Visweswaran ma'am, our speaker of the morning, afternoon, evening. Now the caregivers requirement, their present requirement, their future requirement, what all is needed world over. We will be taking on that. And International Chamber for Service Industry, like every day, every week, we will keep linking with you with those relevant programs, modules, concerns, discussions, deliberations, conferences, couple of things we are trying to bring together. And we look forward to let there be a global peace, let we all live in harmony, and at the same time, what exactly should we do so that the humanity is being given proper care? Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's come together for the caregivers. Let's make everything relevant for them, whether our education, our skills, our day-to-day life, whatever it is. This program is going live for all of you on the YouTube channel ICSI India. You can join from world over anywhere. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, let's extend a very warm welcome and join me in welcoming Dr. Priya Visweswaran, all the way from the United States, from the Texas, early in the morning, when the day has just started, it has just begun, and she has been very kind to spare time for us and to be with us and to share with us her vision. She has taken a couple of programs on caregivers earlier as well. She has given us the statistics. What exactly is the demand till 2030? What is the demand till 2050? How the caregivers are getting prepared. Then she also gave a wonderful programs to us on ChatGPT, if you recall and if you remember. And there she has given lots of new dimension, what exactly the artificial intelligence is doing. In the medical field also, education field also, and other areas of our day-to-day life, artificial intelligence is doing a lot. There are a lot of AI tools which are available today for various activities which has to be taken care of. Today, ladies and gentlemen, let's focus on caregivers. Let's focus on this particular profession, how the things are, and how basically the world is shaping. What is the demand? With these words, let me extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Priya Visweswaran ma'am, all the way from United States. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
sir. Good evening. Appreciate that warm introduction so much. And it's so nice to meet all this. It's so lovely to see your face again. And it's lovely to meet all your students and wards who are enthusiastic and excited by all the hard work that you are doing to raise the awareness level of all these new and upcoming professions for our young people in India. Thank you so much for all your personal sacrifices and for all the growth that you've given our country and for all the opportunities that you've created.
Thank you.
And a very heartfelt thank you as well to your team. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay.
Let's take on the agenda.
Sorry?
Let's take on the agenda, ma'am.
Absolutely, yes.
Everybody's waiting. Everybody's waiting to hear you.
Everybody's waiting. Okay. So we have, yes, sir, just 1 second. I have a slightly less well-prepared presentation, which is something that I just worked on this morning. I also have a much longer 150 slide presentation, but I thought maybe this is a good one to start with, even though it's not as finessed as I would like. So I just, yeah, I just thought I would, let me just try to take the video out. Sorry, it just does that a few times. Just a second.
The title itself is very impressive, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Wow, wow.
So we have to hide this. I'm so sorry. Just one more try. Let me give it one more try, okay? I think it hit that. Okay, there we go. Yes. So I just want to stick to it in this way because there is still some work that needs to be done on this presentation. So first of all, I want to talk about, we are here to discuss an incredible opportunity here today that is not only going to change your life, but also impact the lives of millions of people around the world. I'm very excited to introduce to you a profession that combines the noble cause of caregiving with the fascinating world of wellness and anti-aging therapies, the wellness caregiver. Okay. Imagine waking up every day knowing that you're making a significant difference in someone's life and providing them with the care and assistance they need, while also ensuring their well-being and happiness. As a wellness caregiver, you will not only be a beacon of hope for the elderly population, you will also be a harbinger of change for your own family and community in India. You may be wondering now exactly what does a wellness caregiver do? As a wellness caregiver, you will live with and care for elderly individuals who require assistance in their day-to-day activities. You will be their support system, their friend, their guide, and you will help them with everything from running errands to ensuring that they have a healthy, balanced lifestyle. But your responsibilities don't end there. Working with the Immortality Institute here in Houston, Texas, you could also have the unique opportunity to administer cutting-edge anti-disease and anti-aging protocols. Then that will be thanks to your training that we will be also able to impart to you. This comprehensive 3-month training program will equip you with all the skills and knowledge you will need to become a certified professional wellness caregiver. Not only will you learn the intricacies of caregiving, but you will also be exposed to the latest advancements in health and wellness. And once you complete your training, you will be on your way to countries with aging populations where your services will be in high demand. By embarking on this journey, you are not just choosing a career, but you're also giving yourself an opportunity to grow personally and professionally. As you study further in the country where you provide care, you will be able to build a better future for yourself and your loved ones back in India. So now at this point, I would like to switch to the other presentation that I have, that gives a little bit more detail on the wellness caregiver, if I may.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. So some of this, I think we already have seen the top 30 countries where the population is aging in descending order: Japan, Italy, Germany, Portugal, Greece, Spain, Finland, Austria, Sweden, France, the United States, Czech Republic, Belgium, Switzerland, and others. Here are the top 50 countries where the population is aging in descending order: the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Ireland, Hungary, Australia, Poland, Israel, Canada, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Chile, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and Argentina. This list is based on the percentage of the population that is 65 years of age or older. So you can see here that in Japan alone, there are 34 million people. Italy, 23% of the population of 58 million, which is 13 million people, right? In Germany, again, it's 22% of the 83 million population, which is 18 million. Portugal, 22% of the 10 million population, which is 2 million. Greece, 22% of the 10 million population, which is 2 million, right? The reasons why the populations are aging, and some of this we've already covered in previous presentations. People are living longer, right? In the past, people died younger because they had infectious disease, they would have dysentery, cholera, those kinds of things. But advances in medical technology and healthcare have led to longer lifespans, and birth rates are declining. So typically women had, in the olden days, 50 years ago, 60, maybe more like 70, 80 years ago, women had 10, 12, 16, 14 children. But now women typically have between 1 and 3 children at the most, usually. It's very rare that you see women with 4 and 5 children in their families, right?
Ma'am, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, go ahead.
Interruption.
No worries, sir.
List is not seen. People are posting on the YouTube.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can.
List
the new presentation is not being seen, is it?
Ma'am,
so sorry about that.
Just now you made a mention of the statistics which you gave.
Which countries? Yeah, this is a table. We created this table.
Yes, this was even you can go to previous slide, ma'am.
This is the list of countries where the population is aging in descending order. The top 50 countries, the top 30 countries where population is aging in descending order.
Sure.
So people can take pictures of this if they like, so they know which countries the population is.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
So here we have which countries have the most number of older people. That means almost between 1/4 to 1/3 of the population is above the age of 65. That means you can imagine for every old person, there are between 2 and 3 young people, right? At the most. So the young people have to do it for themselves and for the older people, which that means each, let us say in a country where 1/4, like Italy, 1/4 of the population is older than 65, then 3 young people have to manage each older person that they have. That means if each one does an 8-hour shift, then for 24 hours, they can give care for an older person. That means the entire population is involved in the care if that person is immobile, unable to take care of themselves. And in previous discussions, we've already talked about how to age functionally and how to stay healthy and active and disease-free. Some of this anti-aging coach and all that we've briefly touched on. There's a lot more to that, and I can share. We have protocols for anti-aging, for reversing aging, reversing diabetes, chronic kidney disease. And one change I've made in the last about 6 months is I've decided that it's better to start on some protocol than to have the perfect protocol with only me in my clinic or just with the doctors that I've trained. It's better you start on some anti-aging protocol, on something to reverse your disease. Anything is better than nothing. So you start, that's a totally different piece of this puzzle. We'll talk about that another time. But what I'm trying to say is, if that older person has not taken any kind of treatment to reverse aging, to stay healthy, to have their diseases addressed, then they are going to require the 8 hours a day of the remaining younger population to care for them 24 hours a day. So look at the burden that it is if it is not addressed by countries like India, which have a young population that is available to go abroad and that is bright, intelligent, hardworking, has the right work ethics, has the right value systems. They're very lucky to have young people from India if they accept and take young people from India. And that is something we're also intensively working on. Okay, so the implications of population aging are that the workforce is smaller, right? As people retire, there will be fewer people to work and contribute to the economy, and this could lead to a shortage of workers in sectors such as healthcare and construction. There is a huge shortage of nurses in America right now, huge shortage of healthcare workers, and even doctors. Many of them have retired. Many, even young doctors, are looking outside of medicine. After the COVID pandemic, it has been a crazy amount of loss of nurses, particularly, who have been really very badly treated during the pandemic. They've been left to care for 18, 20 really sick patients at a time. And so there's a huge demand for people in these kind of, high professionalism, high level of training areas. Construction, imagine construction workers in the US, right? And then there is also an increased demand for healthcare and social services, such as nursing homes and home care. And this will put a strain on government budgets and lead to higher taxes. Other implications, there may be a shift in values and priorities. There may be more support for policies by politicians that help the elderly, such as pensions and healthcare. And there may be a decline in support for policies that promote economic growth, such as tax cuts. Well, tax cuts, we all know, do not necessarily promote economic growth, but this is a very particularly Republican view of the world. But investment in the correct kind of infrastructure growth, that will be less if you have to put more money into pension and healthcare for the elderly. This much is pretty obvious, right? So population aging is a complex issue with a number of implications for countries, and it is important to understand that the causes of population aging and the potential consequences, so that countries can prepare for the challenges. We have to understand this, like what are the implications of that, so that we can prepare for that, right? What diseases do they have? We already went over this: cardiovascular disease, cancer, COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, okay, including emphysema, chronic bronchitis, asthma, pneumonias, and so on. Pneumonia is not a COPD, but chronic repeated pneumonia can lead to that. Then we have, of course, the famous killer diabetes, which it is projected that 1/3 of even Indian population will have. Then we have Alzheimer's disease, which is much more common in the West than it is in India. Arthritis, osteoarthritis, particularly a common chronic condition here in the US and in other Western countries. And you'll also see there is a big rise in autoimmune diseases in the West. Osteoporosis, right? So in addition to this, elderly is at risk for a number of other chronic diseases, right? And we spoke about these. And the prevalence of these diseases varies from country to country. For example, cardiovascular diseases are more common in high-income countries. Why? We eat more fat, while cancer is more common in low and middle-income countries. That's not entirely true. We have a pretty high rate of cancer in the US as well, and other countries that have access to any amount of nutrition are also, or food actually, they're also at high risk for getting cancer. So what are the lifestyle factors that affect these diseases, right? Smoking, obesity, and lack of exercise, mainly leading a sedentary life, either watching television all the time or lying around in bed or sitting around in a chair watching Netflix or other things like that. So what can be done to prevent these diseases from afflicting the elderly, right? Maintaining a healthy weight, eating a healthy diet, getting regular exercise, right? Not smoking, definitely limiting alcohol intake, getting regular medical checkups, taking medications as prescribed, managing stress, and participating in social and community activities that allows you to engage with other people, have a good laugh, do something together, like plant a garden in the community, or take a walk together, or do a fundraising for children, or something or the other that gives you meaning and purpose in life. It also gives you a will and a wish to live. And this is a great thing to do to prevent disease. This is how we improve our health and quality of life, right? So what do the elderly in these countries need for caregiving? Some of them may need physical care, including activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, and eating. Some may need instrumental activities of daily living, or IADL, such as cooking, cleaning, and managing medications, right? So the activities of daily living are the basics, whereas the instrumental activities of daily living are those that allow them to be independent, or they can manage with semi-dependence. Here, this is complete dependence, right? And then emotional care is things like providing companionship, emotional support, and reassurance. This includes helping the elderly to cope with stress, grief, and loss. So where can they get their loss from if their other fellow contemporaries pass away, or the grief may be from the child not visiting, not calling them, not taking care of them, not showing them the grandchildren. Stress may be that they have a certain amount of savings, but it may not last if they live for another 20 years and they're physically dependent, right? So part of the caregiver's job will be to try to get them to where it's possible to physical independence, right? And that requires knowledge, it requires training, it requires persistence, it requires unfailing positive spirit. These are rare qualities that people are very lucky to find in people from India in the caregiving profession. That's what I humbly believe and most respectfully believe, right? And this is why these are all Dr. Gulshanji's values and beliefs as well. He has already given these to me, and that is what I'm sharing with you now. So the social care includes helping the elderly to stay connected with family and friends and participate in social activities. It includes helping them to access community resources and services, right? And then financial care includes helping the elderly to manage their finances, to pay their bills, and to make informed financial decisions. And this will be sort of a decision that they come to, but with a discussion with their family, and depending on the level of their mental capacity. Like if they're fully mentally fine, they may say, okay, you know what, I trust you to take my check, my monthly paycheck that comes from the government to the bank, deposit it, and bring back $100 of cash so I can pay you whatever it is, so that you may help them with that also. You may also help them with spiritual care, such as prayer and meditation, right? And connecting with their particular religious community. The needs will vary from person to person. Some people may need a lot of help with their physical and emotional needs, while others may need only a little help. And it would be important to do an intake assessment of the needs of each elderly individual so that we can provide them with the care that they need, right? So that would be an important thing. There are family members who provide care to their elderly relatives also. They may provide physical, emotional, social, financial, or spiritual care. But because they work or they have children or they live in a different city or something, they may only be able to spend a certain number of hours a day if they live in the same city, or certain weeks in a year if they live in a different city. Or if they have young children, they may only be able to be there when the child is away at school or something like that. So family caregivers cannot be expected to give 24 hours of care. That's where society and the government steps in to provide care for the elderly. Then there are professional caregivers who provide care to the elderly. These may be nurses, aides, or other home healthcare professionals. This is actually home healthcare nurse is a title for nursing. So if they have either a registered nurse RN title, or they have a they have another BSN, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. They may have a medical assistant, MA. These are all 4-year courses after high school. So they do 4 years of training and studies and exam passing and all that. Then there is also a licentiate nursing degree. I forget the title of it, but these are actual professions in the US. And so they may also provide, or they may oversee healthcare, but they may not be able to do everything that you as a wellness caregiver is able to do. And in fact, they may set some goals for you to achieve with the older person, and they may also have to learn some things from you which they are not aware of, such as anti-aging or disease reversal. These are things that we will teach you over a period of time, and that may not be something that they are trained in their curriculum or in their jobs or anything like that. So this is a grassroots level at which we're going to address the aging population of the world, right? Directly we are going to meet them where they are in their homes and help them get out of certain diseases or reverse the aging to the extent that they become less physically dependent, right? There are enough millions of people. Believe me, there's enough jobs for every person in India to take care of all the elderly in the world. Believe me, I'm going to show you the numbers. You'll not even believe it. Then there are volunteer caregivers. These are people who volunteer their time to provide care to the elderly. These may be friends, neighbors, members of the community. Can you rely upon them to give steady, consistent care? Sometimes if they get paid, they will do that. They will show up because it's a job for them. They will come and they will spend that 9 to 3 or 9 to 12 or whatever how many ever hours that they are agreeing to do it, to do this work, and then they'll get paid by the government. So it's an arrangement between the neighbor and the government, or it can be somebody that just really cares and they may bring a cake or a pie or some sort of something for celebration or a festival. And once in a while, the family can say, hey, can you come and sit with mother for 2-3 hours? She really likes talking to you, and you can watch the TV show or something. And while you're doing that, I can go to the grocery store and buy some supplies. So once in a while they can do that, or they can do a few hours a day if they're getting paid for it, and that's something that the government will agree to pay them. So these are many ways to provide care to the elderly, and the best way is, of course, to do a combination of this. But this is not taking into account the wellness caregiver, which we are now introducing into the picture, right? And this wellness caregiver then becomes the foundation of the care for the elderly person, attending to their physical, social, emotional, spiritual, financial needs. And while doing that, also being somebody that can alleviate the stress of the professional caregiver, the family caregiver, and a volunteer caregiver can also pitch in and help with the wellness caregiver, right? So how are caregivers typically found and hired? By word of mouth. This is usually people whom people know, or online resources, either websites or agencies that hire these people. They can give a list of caregivers who meet your needs. So a person may say, look, our father has coronary artery disease. He has congestive heart failure. He can't walk more than 20 steps at a time, but he can go to the bathroom. But most of the time he is in bed. He has decided he doesn't want a heart transplant. He's 87 years old, and we support him in this decision. And so we just need somebody to help him. If the mail comes, it's outside, then they have to go pick up the mail. If he needs something that he's dropped on the floor, or if he has to walk more than 20 steps, this person has to be there even to walk him to the bathroom. He has a defibrillator. He eats this kind of food. He has so many medicines to take in a day. He is able to read and write fully well, and he understands. He's mentally perfectly fine. And then he's become socially very isolated because of being sick. And then he goes to the doctor once or twice a month. And so they will give the list of needs for the caregiver. And then somebody who's able to understand medicines and give them in the timely fashion, then they can drive the person to the doctor's office and back. And then they are available, say 8 hours a day during the daytime to help them. And then their evenings and nights and early mornings are free, during which time they can do some studies and other things if they want to. And this person will provide room and board, right? So this is a very mutually helpful, mutually win-win sort of relationship, right? Of course, there are assisted living centers, but these are very, very expensive. They cost between 40 and maybe 60 to 80,000, depending on how much a person wants. If a person wants a full-time caregiving situation for 24 hours a day, then they'll be probably paying $120,000 a year. Because there are 3 caregivers, they're paying, each of them is being paid $26,000 to $30,000 plus the facility, room and rent, plus food, plus all of these things. That only very rich people can afford that, or if they took assisted living life insurance. So insurance for assisted living, if a person starts taking it in their 50s, then by the time they're in their 70s or 80s, if they need part-time or full-time care, if they've not taken care of their health, then that insurance will kick in, right? If they need help to make it. So where are these caregivers given? The other thing is the local area agency on aging. There are many agencies here in the US. There are state agencies, there are federal agencies, and they all have listing of all the resources on their websites. And then there'll always be somebody who is a public liaison who will help, if somebody calls and says, look, I'm looking for a caregiver for my mother or my father or my aunt or my uncle or my grandmother or grandfather, whatever, they will say, okay, these are the resources, you can contact them, maybe they'll have some help for you, those kinds of things, right? Caregivers are typically paid based on experience and based on how much of the different things that they have to do. The cost of living, depending on which part of the world that the caregiver is required to stay and to work, depending on that, the pay will also vary. The level of care required, right? If you need to know about medicines and you need to understand how medicines are given, that will be a higher pay, because if you're just moving their leg or helping them in and out of a chair or a bed or washing them, that will be one level. But if you're doing all that, plus you're checking their medications, giving them their medicines on time, that requires a higher level of responsibility and commitment and education and knowledge. And so they will pay more for that, right? So then they say it's between 12 and 20 dollars per hour. Some caregivers may be paid more or less depending on the factors mentioned above. I have some very interesting things to share with you. At the end of this presentation, I have a presentation on a different profession that you could branch out into as well, from starting off as a wellness caregiver. But as the Immortality Institute evolves protocols for reversing aging and reversing diseases, and we already have a number of protocols right away that we can train you on. And if they require a caregiver that has kidney failure or that has to care for a patient with kidney failure, then now we send a caregiver that has a protocol, that's trained in a protocol to reverse kidney failure. Imagine, it's not going to be 12 to $20 an hour. It's going to be at least double of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we can do that. Sir, I want to take a break. I know I've been going very fast. Do people have any questions? Do you have any questions? And see, we are at 32 slides. We have a total of about 123 slides to go through on this presentation. And the earlier presentation, we have another, that was also 1/3 that we had covered on the earlier presentation. Go ahead, sir.
Ma'am, it's going on very well. People are enjoying. They are just posting the compliment.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
They didn't know that people can get $12 to $20 per hour. They didn't know about it.
Yes. I'm working with some virtual assistants in the Philippines. I'm paying one individual a certain amount of money, but I just found out that somebody who's coaching me, she's paying $6 an hour for virtual assistant. They have to be up all night in the Philippines to take care of all her work during the daytime in the US. And they're all the time in front of the screen. So they're getting sick because they are in front of the screen all through their night, and they have to sleep during the daytime. Whereas with the wellness caregiving profession, you will keep regular hours for the local neighborhood, and you'll have lots of physical activities, so you won't get sick, and you'll get double, triple the pay that these virtual assistants in the Philippines are getting. So it's a win on every front, if you ask me. So then,
very captivating. It's very captivating presentation. Very captivating. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So it is important to remember that the pay for caregivers is negotiable, right? You can always ask for a higher rate. You can also, if you're a person looking for a caregiver, you may be looking for a person who's willing to work for less pay. Both ways, it's negotiable, right? Yes, immigrants are hired for caregiving in many countries. We don't call them wellness caregivers. They're called caregivers, but you know what? We are going to call you wellness caregivers, right? And we look at these top 30 countries where the aging population is at least 20 to 22%. And at the most, it's almost 28%, like in Japan. So in these countries like Canada and the United States, immigrants make up a large portion of the caregiving workforce, right? So why? Because immigrants are more willing to take on more low-paying jobs, maybe that are not as attractive to native born. They may have language skills and cultural knowledge. So here in America, you'll have lots and lots of people from Mexico that are in the healthcare professions, or they're in the janitorial or custodial professions. And then from Canada, you'll have them in nursing here in US, because they need, and they'll take them from the countries where they can. And then the nurses who are born in Mexico, or they are Mexican American, they can speak Spanish fluently. A lot of patients here are Spanish speaking. So third, they may be willing to work long hours and live with their employers. The other thing I want to say is that that Spanish culture is very similar to our culture. So, you may think that the United States is just made of white people, but in fact, the Hispanic population is the largest growing minority in this country. And it is projected to overtake the Caucasian population in a very short period of time. So this is not the country of 30, 40 years ago that you thought it was. It's a very different country than it is projected on TV shows and other things, or at least, the TV shows that you used to watch of 30, 40 years ago, right? It's a very different country today. Countries that need the most caregivers are like Japan, where 1 in 4 Japanese will be over the age of 65. In fact, it's almost 1 in 3, right? 28%. It's maybe it's closer to 1 in 4, but that's a lot of people. Japan will need a significant number of caregivers to provide care for its elderly population. China also has a rapidly aging population. By 2030, it is estimated that 1 in 5 Chinese people will be over the age of 65. This means China will need a large number of caregivers to provide care for its elderly population. Why does a country need caregiver if it has younger people already? Because the younger people are in the workforce, right? Some of them have jobs that are not in the same place. They have jobs that are not caregiving. They may be an insurance salesperson. Another young person may be an administrative assistant in an office. Another young person, this is not their profession. They don't know how to take care of their own mother or father, or they are not able to financially do that. So whose responsibility is it to take care of society? That is the government's responsibility, right? So in general, that's how that works. Guess what? India has a rapidly aging population as well. By 2030, 1 in 6 Indians will be over the age of 65. India too will need a significant number of caregivers to provide care for its elderly population. So wellness caregiving is an actual profession that Gulshan Sharma ji is creating, and we are helping him create. And wellness caregiving will not only be caregiving, it will also be bringing in wellness into the lives of the people that we are taking care of, right? And helping them reverse their diseases, helping them reverse their aging, and generally be of use to the community, their family, the society, as you help these people and as they get better, believe me, their friends, their family, everybody that knows them will want to hire you, because my gosh, what's there not to, they'll hire you in any job. They'll be happy to have you in any job. You're unlikely to return to India, although Mother India wants you back, right? So Germany has a relatively low birth rate and a high life expectancy. Again, this has a shortage of young people to support its elderly population. And Germany is looking to immigrants to fill the gap. So for example, Germany has a lot of immigrants from countries like Iran and some Middle Eastern countries. France has a lot of immigrants from African countries that are part of the former France and French Empire. So you will be very surprised to see the number of types of different people in these countries today that you may not have seen 30, 40, 50 years ago, So it's not just a homogeneous population at all. In fact, the countries that have a homogeneous population actually are Japan and China. They don't have that many immigrants from outside, and Russia too. These are large countries with a very relatively still homogeneous population. But countries like India, Germany, Spain, Italy has 3 lakh Chinese people. Italy sold all their ports to China, and China is running the ports in Italy. That's how when COVID started, first it started in that place in China, and then it went from there straight to Italy, and Italy to Spain and all those countries around there. Because of that, there are 300. This is something my father taught me. I didn't know this. 3 lakh Chinese people live in Italy, managing the ports that Italy sold to China. So there may be some challenges that people may have to hire immigrants. So the first challenge is language skills and cultural knowledge to provide care for elderly people in a new country. Now, these days, it's easily surmounted by using tools like ChatGPT. And it was already surmounted a long time ago with Google Translate. So you can actually put in something in English and say translate it to Japanese or translate it to Chinese or translate it to German or Italian or Greek or whatever, depending on which country you're in. And then you'll just press the button and it'll speak out the words. So let's say you have an iPad and you're given that iPad or some sort of tablet as part of the job, and you just put it in what you're saying, and they can put in their reply, they can type up their reply, and it'll tell you in English what they're saying. So the language skills are, it's not an essential big thing. It is technologically can be surmounted, right? The other thing, they say that immigrants may be exploited by employers who take advantage. Vulnerable meaning, if you're living in somebody's house, then you are subject to their particular, if they want to turn the lights off at 9, okay, well, there might be some things that have to be negotiated, right? So despite these challenges, hiring immigrants as caregivers is a hugely positive thing, both for the immigrants and for the elderly people. Okay, it's not a small positivity, it's a big positive thing. Immigrants can provide a valuable service to the elderly, and they can also benefit from the opportunity to work and live in a new country, right? You must have a different country experience. You must. We all must, because there is so much we can learn when we go to another country. We learn so much about the people, about the culture, about what matters, what doesn't, how they look at life and the world. There is so much of non-linear stuff that we learn when we live in another country and we are exposed to other people's cultures and their value systems, beliefs, and so on and so forth, right? So I would strongly, highly urge and recommend doing that, right? So then, according to a 2021 report by the World Health Organization, the following 30 countries will need at least 1 million full-time caregivers by 2050. What they're saying is each of these countries will need at least 1 million full-time caregivers each. So that's 30 countries. So that's 30 million full-time caregivers, right? They're saying by 2050, but my guess is it's going to be a lot sooner than that. Could be as early as by 2030 or by 2040. Okay, 2030 is my bet. So these are countries that need at least 1 million. Some of these countries may need 10, 20, 30 million. So why am I showing you this? Because there is no job insecurity. If for some reason it doesn't work out in one family, you're immediately going to have a job with another family. Believe me, that's a real thing. There is a full job security. That's why I'm showing this slide, right? And they are saying that the total number of full-time caregivers needed in these countries is estimated to be 133 million. What did we show you here? Only 30 million. But actually, what are they saying? 133 million. So definitely, right, that difference, some of these countries are needing 10 and 20 million, right? So that's what we should be aware of. It's really not 133. I think it's really more like 10 times this number. And I'm going to show you how and why I think that, right? Look at this figure, right? And the need for caregivers is expected to grow rapidly in the coming years as the world population ages. See that? So there's no question of not having a job. There is no question of not having a job. You will always permanently, for the rest of your life, if you don't want to do anything else, or you're very happy doing this and you're a world leader in doing this, you will always have this job. Okay. And there are other things you can do with it that I'm going to show you in the other presentation also. In 2020, there were an estimated 1.2 billion people aged 60 and older worldwide. This number is expected to double by 2050. That means we already have 1.2 billion people of 60 years and more. Now, let us say half of these people are independent and mobile at 60. Is it not a conservative estimate that the other half need people to help them? Let us say 500 million people. that is 500 million people, need help. Already in 2020, 500 million people need help. What are they saying? Only 133 million will be needed by 2050. See the big gap between the actual need and the projected needs? The projected need is falling significantly lower than even the actual present need. Do you see how this is such an inadequate assessment, kind of? I'm not criticizing anybody or anything. I'm just saying that we have numbers. This is real. This is unreal. This is assuming all kinds of things, that 3 people in the family, in each family, will come and save the life of the one older one. And we are not going to need more than 133 million. Is that even real? Is that even possible? I don't think so. Now, if 500 million people were needed in 2020, 3 years ago, imagine if that number has to double by 2050. It's not going to just double. There's going to be more people above the age of 70, more people above the age of 80, more people that need more kinds of help. It's not going to just double. It's more likely to, if 1.2 billion becomes 2.4 billion, 500 million will at least become 1 billion. 1 billion jobs in caregiving by 2050. What I'm saying is it'll be more like 1.5 to 2 billion jobs in caregiving by 2050. That's what I'm saying. So where is 133 million in 2050? And where is 1.5? That's exactly 10 times. 1.5 billion jobs by 2050 in caregiving is 10 times the projected need according to World Health Organization. I wish it was World Health Organization, but it is not. So the growth of the elderly population will put a strain on healthcare systems and social services around the world without caregivers. So again, this is just, these numbers are just, they're not the real numbers and the fake numbers. This is what is called fake. They call fake news, right? And this is the real news. We are actually going to need between 1.5 and 2 billion people to care for the number of older people in the world by 2050. We already need 500 million people. So this estimate of 133 million in 2050 is 1/10 of the estimate. This is what I was saying earlier. A lot of fake news. So what are the challenges that will need to be addressed in order to meet this growing need for caregivers? The first challenge is the shortage of qualified caregivers. There are not enough people with the skills and training to provide care for the elderly. But this is what we are helping you with. We are going to give you a 3-month course. We're going to address all the management of these chronic diseases. We will teach you all the fundamentals and basics you need to know in anatomy, physiology, pathology, right? Clinical medicine. Whatever you need to know to care for these people, there's not a lot of medicine involved. It's really more, how do you summon your common sense? Like, what are some rules that you should follow, right? If somebody is breathing 25 times a minute, do you sit with them and care for them and give them breathing treatments, or do you call an ambulance, right? These are the kinds of things we will teach you. Why? Because we don't want you to be in a situation where you didn't know. It's better to be safe and call the ambulance if you're not sure. If somebody, then you put, let's say you have a pulse ox machine, and let's say they have emphysema, and you put on the pulse ox machine, and they usually, the pulse ox shows 88%. And now you put it on and it's still showing 88%. Are you going to call an ambulance because it's below the usual of 93%? No, this is their usual. You stick to their usual, right? So we will train you in all of these things, right? This needs to be known, and it needs to be understood, and it needs to be followed in a way, and you need to have some training. So we'll give you some, in a very low stress environment, we'll give you cases, and we'll give you lots and lots of cases. You'll see 100, 200, 300 cases. This is what is happening. This is what is happening. So you'll be very mentally ready and prepared that when you walk in there, you won't just be looking at their leg ulcer or their whatever, this or that, their whatever, their pneumonia, whatever. You'll see the whole picture, right? This is a vital signs. This is what you should assess with regard to this patient relatively. How do they look like before? And what is the trend doing now? So we'll give you all the foundation on the medical side. We'll give you all the foundation on the caregiving side. How do you help somebody to their feet without injuring your back? There are completely easy ways to do this. We'll give you all the equipment you need, right, to be able to do these things. So that is what the training is. And people don't have that training. The people who are family members, who are neighbors, and so on and so forth, they don't have that training. People who have that training, like nurses, they cannot spend the full day with one patient. That would be like, $80,000 per patient per year. That's not going to work. They can spend 1 hour at the most with each patient, but that's not enough for the patient, right? So it's just not enough people with the skills and training. That's where you come in, right? The second challenge is the cost of the care, right? Many countries may not have the resources to meet the growing demand. What we are talking about is not your cost. We are talking about things like somebody who's elderly, who's on dialysis, home dialysis, right? That's a huge cost. That is $80, $90, $120,000 a year just for dialysis. Those are the kinds of costs that the countries cannot meet. They're having a hard time. So what are they doing? They're having a meeting with the patient and the family, and they're saying, look, we're going to just stop dialysis. Or if you get sick, we're going to not revive you, or we're not going to put you in the hospital. Is that okay with you? Because they're not going to talk about cost, but they're going to tell them, you're already 87 years old. You've led a full life. If you're okay with this, then we are also okay with it. We don't have to force dialysis, down your throat if you don't want it. So that is the kind of cost that people are having a hard time keeping up with. But if you have 1 billion older people and they all need wellness caregiver, that is also going to be a cost. But that's going to be a global cost. I don't think it'll be a national cost. And if we get wellness caregivers from countries like India, it'll be one of the most cost-effective interventions that these countries can do that have an aging population. They will still get the high level of care for the individual without its breaking their bank for them as the government, right? So what can we do? First, we need to invest in training more people to provide care for the elderly. Second, we need to develop new technologies that can help support caregivers. So yes, we were talking about all the instruments that you need so that you can help raise them out of the bed. There'll be maybe a brace, a back brace, something that you can wear that you strap on. If they ask, then you lean and you'll teach you the technique of squatting without. I mean, I have done this. I have both lifted elderly people. I have examined them. I have helped, I have done all kinds of things. I mean, as a physician, you do whatever it takes to get them the care, right? So, but you need to be trained, and physicians are not trained in how to lift elderly, heavy people from a couch or a bed. So I have done both. I have injured my back, and I have, watched nurses and then try to imitate them. So my point here is that with training, you can be safe when you're doing the work with the elderly, right? The second is, so these are the technologies that you need. You'll need a pulse ox machine. You may need a wearable monitor for the elderly person. Let's say that you are sitting in your room studying or doing some, computer-based work or something, and you get a sudden beep that they're on the move and they haven't called out for you, or maybe they called out for you and you couldn't hear them. So you get a beep that they're walking. Now, immediately you drop everything and you go there to help them, right? So these kinds of technologies are also some things that we can help you with. Then we need to find ways to make care more affordable. And here's where hiring highly brilliant, intelligent people who are hardworking, who have family orientation, who have heart for people, other human beings, like from India. This is where and how it can be affordable. It's not only affordable, it also helps the person, right? It helps the caregiver too. It helps the caregiver's family. It helps the country. So it is a win in every direction. And any country that has an aging population must be willing to consider this. And we are trying to address it politically, right? So as far as the number of part-time caregivers, right? In the top 30 countries with over 20%, part-time caregivers alone is estimated to be 180 million. This is based on the assumption that each elderly person will need an average of 20 hours of care per week, and that half of this care will be provided by a part-time caregiver, that 10 hours a week. That means 30 hours a week, the caregiver is either working another job, or maybe they're studying for 10 hours, and another 20 hours a week, they're doing other jobs, like maybe they're grocery store clerk, or maybe they're a massage therapist, or maybe they're a data entry person, or maybe they're a bookkeeper, or maybe they're a physician assistant. So I don't know what they'll be doing, but 20 hours of care, let's say 10 hours of caregiving, they're doing 10 hours of study a week, and then they're doing 20 hours of work somewhere else. So this is how they're estimating that 180 million people will be needed. But you remember, all these estimates are actually 1/10 of the real estimate. Okay. So the need for part-time caregivers is expected to grow rapidly in the coming years as the population ages. In 2020, again, there were estimated 1.2 billion people aged 60 and older worldwide. This number is expected to double by 2050. If we don't hire the caregivers, then we're going to have all kinds of strain and stress on the governmental budget and social systems. I don't know why some of these slides are repeating. So how are caregivers hired in these countries? So government programs that provide financial assistance to elderly people, these programs may also provide a list of caregivers who are eligible to receive government funding. Then there are volunteer programs run by religious organizations, community groups, and nonprofit organizations. And the best way to hire is to do a research and to find a caregiver who's the best fit for them and their loved one, right? They have to interview the caregiver and ask for references, check the caregiver's credentials. So if you can do some caregiving work in India itself before you're available to be hired abroad, that will hugely help you, because these references, your recommendation letters, people will hire based on those. So if you can work for 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year in India, that would help you tremendously, right? And then they will also check the credentials and make sure that you're licensed and insured. And that's where we come in, and we make sure of all these things, right? And here are the tips. This is for people who are hiring caregivers. Why am I sharing it with you? Because it's good for you to know what they will be looking for. The best caregivers are often in high demand, so it's important to start your search early. Be clear about your needs and expectations. Ask for references. So these are the things that they will do. They will tell you exactly what they need and exactly what they expect. And they will ask for recommendation letters of people who have worked with you for your character reference, right? And then they will do a background check. So they'll make sure that the person has not committed any crime in any other country. And then they will hire them, right? So if they don't get a good feeling when they meet a person, they may say no. So here are some other synonyms: care assistant, caretaker, domestic helper, home health aide, and all these things. But wellness caregiver is a totally different thing. We talked about these other names that we talked about. Wellness caregiver is a very, very nice phrase that Gulshanji came up with. It's much more professional. It'll be better understood by the general public. And it's more accurate. It describes the role of the person in the question much more accurately. It's much more inclusive, as it does not get into the gender of the person and so on, right? It helps promote a holistic approach to care. It recognizes the importance of self-care for caregivers, right? If you're a wellness caregiver, then you're also taking care of your wellness in that job, right? So you're taking care of the wellness of your ward, but also you're taking care of the wellness of your own self, right? It can help reduce burnout and compassion fatigue in caregivers, and improve communication and collaboration between caregivers and other healthcare professionals. A bunch of duplicates. So how immigrant caregivers are hired? First is to find a caregiver who's a good fit with the elderly person and their family through online directories, agencies, and word of mouth. And to this, we're going to add government. Then they will screen the caregiver, including background checks to make sure that their references check out, they have no criminal background, and they have some work history. And then they will need to get the necessary visas and permits, which may or may not be a complex process. So it's important to work with an experienced immigration attorney. And here in the US, our educational entity is working with some US hired people's representatives, congressmen, to see if we can activate this H2C visa category for caregivers. It has already been created. It has not yet been activated. So we are trying to see if we can do that. And then the caregiver will need to be transported to the country where they will be working and provided with accommodation. And this will be arranged with the employer and the agency. And the elderly person and their family will provide the caregiver with information about the person and their needs, make the caregiver feel welcome, and provide them with opportunities to socialize, respect the caregiver's culture and norms, and create a positive working environment. And this can be a rewarding experience for both the elderly person and their family and the caregiver, right? So this is the goal for that. Then we are looking at some visa requirements in each country. Gulshanji, am I going through this now? Shall I, or how do you feel about this?
Ma'am, this we do it later. This we do it later. Yeah.
Okay.
We have given the journal profile. We have given the, the journal scenario and everything we
Yes,
have
sir.
to them so that they get
Okay.
the overall idea of the canvas.
Absolutely.
And
Do they have any questions, sir? Do you have any? Do they?
Everybody has appreciated the idea.
Wonderful, sir.
I'm very happy today for one thing that
Yes, sir.
you have been very, very kind to accept our chamber's request that instead of just calling caregivers, if we call them wellness caregivers, it's all
Your
together,
idea, sir.
It's all together. It gives a different dimension.
Totally.
It gives a security, it gives a mental perception, it gives acceptance. Because when you use a term only caregiver, it gives many dimensions.
Yes.
But when
Absolutely.
you say wellness caregiver, that's all together specific and
Totally different.
nicely being taken into.
Much higher energy level, but also it also makes it very focused in the sense of I'm not going to just be your errand boy or your chore woman or somebody that just cleans your back or whatever. No, I'm actually going to do the 10 or 20 or 100 steps every day that it's going to take for you to go back to become well.
Yes.
So, and I think if we can persuade the medical profession to write prescriptions for wellness caregivers at the time of discharge, they always write, I've written so many home health care prescriptions. Home health care nurses, they will come one day. Well, the first day they'll spend 2 or 3 hours. Then after that, if they come once a week and spend 1 hour, it's a big thing, and that's how they make the money. But ultimately, it's not about the making of the money. It's about delivering the care that the person needs. Why do we write for home health care? Because they need somebody to take care of their medical and other needs at home.
Yes.
And wellness caregivers are a lot more value for the healthcare profession. So writing for a wellness caregiver means the health insurance company will have to pay for it, which means it won't come out of the pocket even of the family.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, world over, those are joining us for this particular program. Before we close today's session and convey our gratitudes to ma'am, I just wish to quickly run on a couple of points. Number one, along with Dr. Priya Visweswaran ma'am, we will be running a short capsule that will be offered online, which we would provide you basically to give you the basic ingredients. How do you prepare yourself to go to a particular country? Number two, as far as the culture norms, other things are there, they all are going to be the part of it, and we will give you. Secondly, we will also ensure that you get 15 days, Red Cross basic medical facilities course as a part of our package, as a part of our program. We will also work on, and we will discuss with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, because they have got a program called pre-departure training. So we will try and induct that as a part of this particular program, depending on the specific need of a particular country for the wellness caregivers. And ma'am used a wonderful term, another one. Why do we have the home health care givers? So all that factor when we are taking into consideration. But before we close the session, I wish to share with all of you Respective countries have got their own norms. Respective
Yes.
countries, once you are being prepared from India to reach that particular destination, you
Sir.
have to undergo a short-term program in that particular country for that certification, which is acceptable for that country to take you as a professional caregiver and allow you to work in that particular country. We discussed at length in Canada. We discussed with Dr. Priya ma'am also in detail. We are in discussions with many other countries. So we will
Okay.
work out, and finally we will plan out, and we will soon roll in. And the final nitty-gritties we will just try and give it to you. And we would also support and help once we are done with the basics and complete packaging of the permutation combinations together. Then there are many organizations, those are at present running caregivers programs, but they need more professionalism. At the
Yeah.
same time, they need to understand the requirement of the specific country, country specific, that is something very important. So that we will try and bring in subsequently in this particular program for all of you. Today, we just wanted to, give basically the curtain raisers so that you understand we have done enough of programs for you. And we are going to have a program for you from Croatia also, from Poland also, from Germany also, from UK also. Canada, we have already done with ma'am. We have done the US. So we are working in that particular direction. With these
Thank you.
words, I would request the concluding remarks of the ma'am, and thereafter then we close the session.
Absolutely, sir. So I just wanted to share with you, thank you so much for this opportunity. I wanted to share with you a statistic that is very, very shocking to me, for example, So if you look at the total number of people hired through agencies in the US for caregiving, it's about less than 100,000 or 1 lakh. Okay. So with less than 1 lakh people, and we have already shown how we believe that even the existing need is almost 500 million wellness caregivers. And the projected need is 133 million by 2050, which is 1/10 of what we believe is needed in 2050. And the agencies, all of them together in the US, are hiring only a total of less than 1 lakh people. There is a big gap in the perception of the need and the supply. So people are not seeing what the demand is, and the supply is like one-tenth of what is needed, 1/100th of what is needed. So that is one shocking statistic. Also, you can see that countries such as Japan, that they have given caregiver visas. I just want to share this number with you. Japan has, for example, issued 440,000 caregiver visas in 2020. Germany, 330,000. Italy, 260,000. France, they are already giving this number of visas for caregivers. Okay. But how many people need care? That is running in the millions. So again, like I said, the number of visas given is about 1/10, maybe 1/20th of the number of people who need the care. So these are some couple of really shocking statistics that I wanted to leave you with. United States is the worst, I think, one of them of the lot. 130,000 caregiver visas, they're saying, but in reality, there's 53 million people above the age of 65 in the US. If even 1/10 of them, and even of the 53 million people, I know the US statistics, I can tell you, every one of those 53 million people has at least one chronic medical illness. This is the number of people above the age of 65. They're covered by government healthcare insurance called Medicare. Okay.
You have statistics on the next slide also, ma'am. I think on the 72nd.
Yeah.
Yes, Australia, Portugal, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, Then you've
Yeah.
got Republic, Hungary, Austria,
Yeah.
Slovakia, Finland,
All
Denmark.
these,
Okay,
they're all hiring 1/10, and the US is actually, US has only issued 1/100th of the number of visas of the caregivers it needs.
total it needs. Okay, okay. We'll work out on that, ma'am. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. It's a
not at
wonderful,
all, sir.
it's
Thank
a
you.
wonderful efforts of yours, and I must appreciate you're so
Not at all.
deeply immersed emotionally, professionally, and spiritually into this. There's
Thank you,
so
sir.
much,
Appreciate it.
there's so much which can be done for humanity. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Absolutely, sir.
while closing, I just wish to
Thank you.
share with Dr. Priya ma'am that 3 days back or 2 days back, I met almost, I do not know, I can't even count different association presidents of tourist guides in India,
Okay. Oh,
different
how lovely.
presidents. So when I was talking about, I realized, like in tourism, like in tourism, the most important person, you may have an excellent policy, you may have a planning, you have a marketing, you have a management, you have got a trained manpower, everything is fine. Ultimately, who's
Yes,
the person who spends maximum time with the visiting tourist? It's tourist guide. Whether we are
absolutely.
going to get a repeat tourist or not, whether you're going to get high spending tourist or not, whether one satisfied tourist going back to their country is going to send 10 more tourists or not, similar way in the
Totally.
entire health and wellness profession, I personally feel, and ma'am will endorse that
Absolutely.
caregivers, because ultimately the person like tourist guide who is spending maximum time with the tourist, you are spending maximum time with so-called ill patient, difficult times, whatsoever is there. So the
Yes,
caregivers, don't
totally, sir.
underestimate this profession. This profession is a
It's
noble
huge.
profession, and
Very
so
noble.
much, so much. And what ma'am mentioned, all three dimensions we are going to bring into. The training is going to be par excellence. We are going to have such a module so that you're acceptable world over in any country. It will have all basic modules. Number two, we will utilize the technology the best possible way through the artificial intelligence. And number three, care to be affordable. That means the training to be affordable. And at the same time, you moving abroad, you should also be affordable when you're having a boarding, lodging, and other kind of a things being taken care of. You got to be reasonable. It's a noble profession. It's a future profession. And Sahibpreet, you were asking me, what is the qualification of a person? And you will be pleasantly surprised to know when I've gone through the details, once again, so much is going through my mind. Like in India, you are having two sets of people. One is going to be tourist guides, those are graduates, those are specially qualified. They become tourist guides. They get the license from the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and also they get the permission from ASI, that's called Archaeological Survey of India, under the Ministry of Culture. Similar way, we have to work out a strategy that the people, those are going for wellness or those are going for health services, particularly in the wellness caregiving profession, you should be equipped and you should be such a wonderful human being that you
Yes,
carry empathy. You carry empathy.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Cyprate, the qualification, you'll be surprised to know the question is very difficult, but I'm telling you what I learned from Canada. It is +2. You got to be
Yes.
+2. Can you
Just
believe it?
high school. Yeah.
Yes, you
If you
just,
have that to 5 years of education after that as a teacher,
yes,
like some
yes.
like you are, I mean, my gosh, yeah. They're very,
So,
very lucky to have you. Yeah.
so we will take all that into consideration with Dr. Priya ma'am, and along with our team, we will take the agenda forward. So this was the complete series we have given you. We have given you 7 to 8 programs on caregiving, and now we will be coming for delivery of the program. And of course, ma'am's artificial intelligence, chat GPT, we will take some other day, the remaining portion. With these words, our deep gratitudes and thanks to ma'am, our great regards to ma'am. Ma'am, yes.
I have I have actually enough material for 2 more presentations on caregivers, at least one more. So I'm
Ma'am,
going to actually ask you for
ma'am,
one more week
ma'am,
if you
ma'am,
have time.
ma'am, for public consumption, this should be fine. Now, rest, it should come in the training program of ours, which we are going to deliver. Because your hard work should be seen in the training program now. Let's give a
Very good, sir.
shape to that final. And we finally come out with the final print of the program and deliver to the humanity. If you will
Sounds
permit,
good, sir.
rest I'll discuss
Absolutely.
with you, ma'am. Thank you very
Absolutely,
much.
sir. My pleasure.